Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of Regalytics, and I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday than give you an update on the 9,620 alerts that came out last week. And if you want to celebrate my birthday, then I suggest that you either reshare this video or follow us on Facebook. Yes, I am serious of all things. We just had our very first viral post. I went to bed and there were 400 likes, and I woke up and there were 700 likes, and this morning we were clocking in at 805 likes, 110 comments, and 93 shares. Never seen anything like it. We somehow have created a fascinating discussion amongst people on all sides about California's gasoline-powered vehicle ban. I'm doing my best to moderate and just add facts to the conversation with no view on the merits of the reg. Obviously, some of you might pick up my personal views, but I do try to keep it above board without judgment as best as I can. The regulator of the week is NASA, and no, not the space agency, but the North American Securities Administrators Association, because they officially caused me to add a new search term to my Regalytics innovation feed, where I follow hot topics like deepfake, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, etc. The word is finfluencer. It's not the first time they put out a warning about the rise of influencers on social media, but it definitely will not be the last. So get ready for the SEC and other regulators to start picking up on this word and regulating. And speaking of AI, the topic of the week is, yes, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. The NIST is having a meeting of its National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee on October 12th. The National Science Foundation is having a meeting of its National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Task Force on October 21st. The EEOC and the DOJ had a roundtable on AI and algorithmic fairness for hiring, and the notes of that meeting are now out. And finally, the National Institute of Health put out a video of Grace Peng, their head of biomedical imaging and bioengineering, talking about the new Bridge to Artificial Intelligence program that the NIH is working on to transform the use of data and improve patient outcomes. Speaking of health, New Jersey introduced a new bill establishing an interagency council on menopause to promote and support access to best practice health care for a person through their menopause transition and post-reproductive years. The SEC was on fire with fines this week. Here comes some of the juiciest ones. So first, Morgan Stanley Smith Barney. Okay, so to unpack this one, Morgan Stanley used a third-party vendor to remove thousands of electronic devices from their data centers to remove, destroy, or delete any of the data on these devices. The moving company had no experience in this area, so they subcontracted to an e-waste management company. Anyway, for whatever reason, the moving company stopped working with that subcontractor, instead started selling the unwiped devices to a new third-party vendor, which included thousands of pieces of personally identifiable data, PII. So Morgan Stanley has to pay a $35 million fine for failure to protect the PII of approximately 15 million customers. The SEC also went after Boeing and its former CEO for making misleading public statements following the crashes of the 737 MAX planes. Basically, they publicly calmed the public and said the plane was safe, even though they were aware of contrary information. And more in misrepresentation, Compass Minerals International misled investors about a technology upgrade that was supposed to reduce the costs, but it actually increased them. And the company failed to disclose the financial risk created by the company's excessive discharge of mercury in Brazil. Compass is paying a $12 million fine to settle these charges. EY got in trouble again. Well, at least one of their employees did. 4 separate instances of insider trading from the same guy. And finally, Raymond James got in trouble for one of their reps who misappropriated $900,000 from the IRA of an elderly customer by diverting funds through fraudulently obtained wire transfers that he sent directly to his personal bank account. Then he took another 22 grand from another elderly person directly into his bank account. And finally, they found out because he admitted it to his supervisor. So anyway, Raymond James got in trouble because they failed to detect this, and so they have to pay $500 million as a penalty. And speaking of smackdowns, my favorite regulator, the Senate Banking Committee, has some drama from both the Republican and the Democrat side. The Democrat side released a report highlighting consumer abuses of mega banks like Citi and Bank of America. In short, it is not pretty. They're charging billions in overdraft fees, gave way more PPP money to the larger clients than the small customers, and they apparently also don't do a very good job monitoring stolen money on Zelle, which is a payments network that's owned by 7 of the banks together. The Republican side, which is obsessed with deregulation, is not happy about the ESG scores happening from rating agencies. So they proceeded to demand information from the ratings agencies about their ESG practices, which of course creates a regulatory burden on rating agency businesses. And speaking of ESG, the NCUA is encouraging credit unions to submit a voluntary diversity self-assessment. Apparently participation last year was about 8.6% of credit unions. Hopefully more participate this year before it becomes involuntary. The Fed raised interest rates this week, but you already know that. But did you know that the Fed asked for public comments on operational risk management requirements for systemically important financial market utilities? Those are FMUs that are supervised by the Fed. In crypto, Nexo is the next big bust. 7 securities regulators got Nexo in trouble for their unregistered crypto interest accounts. I'm sure there will be more states and federal agencies to follow. CISA, Treasury, the FBI, and the U.S. Cyber Command issued a joint technical alert about an ongoing ATM cash-out scheme by North Korean government cyber actors. It's basically modern-day bank robbery with no guns in sight. CISA also released the Cloud Security Technical Reference Architecture and the Zero Trust Maturity Model for public comment. Speaking of cyber, Ron DeSantis, the government of Florida, issued an executive order to Florida's Department of Management Service to pass cyber laws to prevent Florida businesses from making mistakes giving information to our foreign adversaries. Meanwhile, the House introduced 2 bills to improve cybersecurity for our federal government and also nonprofit and private sectors. Continuing with privacy, the White House announced that the Office of Intellectual Property Enforcement Coordinator proposed new regulations for the Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act. The proposed rule describes how individuals like you and me can find out if the government has information on us. And New York State introduced a new bill to amend rules related to the New York Child Data Privacy and Protection Act. Also sort of in privacy, but Governor Gavin Newsom signed more California legislation because those suckers produce new laws every day. It's honestly amazing. What a team. But anyway, undocumented Californians will be able to obtain a state ID. And finally, Alaska's governor issued an order to establish the Governor's Advisory Task Force on Recreational Marijuana to take a look at marijuana tax and fee structures. Once the governor names appointees to the task force, it will meet monthly and submit a report at the end of the year. That's it this week for Regalytics. Give me a birthday gift and buy a subscription. See you next Wednesday.